Welcome back to another Planet Coaster tutorial. I'm your host, Brothgar, and today we're going to be taking a look at Maximum G. Now this is actually a byproduct of some testing that I was doing for Comrade over here. It says another amazing aspect you could do is look into the banking that you would normally bank inward, but actually bank them outwards to create a negative G. It was a creative idea, but before we can understand and fully get into that, I did some testing, we have to understand what our G limits are. So vertical, horizontal, and front to back, acceleration and deceleration. What are your limits right there? And I started exploring with this roller coaster right here, which was actually going quite a bit faster. And what I saw is this one over here. I tested to see if it was the same between two roller coasters. It was. And what I was seeing is something that I didn't think I would see. Up until now, Nausea has been a non-factor in this game, but suddenly Nausea is showing up in spades when I started to test horizontal Gs. And what's happening is you experience too many horizontal Gs, doesn't matter if you're upside down or right side up or whatever, you experience a moment of high horizontal G, and then you have a prolonged experience of sickness. Now, I don't know if you've ever had this thought while riding a roller coaster, but it's one of the most terrifying thoughts I think you can ever have in an amusement park. Sometimes this thought pops into my mind when I'm actually in a roller coaster riding, I got my hands up, my mouth open, screaming, having fun, and the thought crosses your mind, right? What if the person in front of me gets sick? All that puke's got to go somewhere, and it's probably going to go over me. Ooh, maybe even in my mouth. That's one of the most horrifying thoughts. I mean, besides maybe becoming detached from your seat and flying through the air with the impending doom of the ground that's coming up to kill you, that might be worse. But besides that, getting puked on, I mean, that's 9/10 in my opinion. So that's what's going on right here. People are getting sick, and everybody else is terrified that they're going to get covered in the puke, right? So that's what's going on because they're experiencing a high moment of horizontal G that is above the limit. So let's talk about the limits. All right, so I did that, and I discovered it, and then I moved on to the testing. So here there was many different aspects I was testing right here. For example, you experience a turn. Does it happen if you get more turns? Experiments happened, math was calculated, and then I came over here. So we're just going to skip that because it just got too long, right? So this is its setup of testing just horizontal G, and this is based on 1G, 2G, 3G, and so on until we reach the point where it gets absolutely horrible. So the very first result right here is we're seeing that there is basically no nausea generated at 1G. The roller coaster can hardly even move on the track at 1G, just to give you an idea. So your excitement rating is terrible and fear is nothing, so don't worry about it if you have 1G. That would be horrible. We'd never be able to make roller coasters in the first place. Fear, again, nothing happens right there. The thing you want to watch is nausea, because nausea pushes fear up, and that's the key aspect right there. So 2G, no big deal. We start to get into 3G here, and we get, some mildly decent download speeds, I guess, if you're from 2014 or whatever. But you start to see at the very first time is that we're starting to see nausea come into the elements of our ride, and that is at 3G right here. Now that we're just starting to experience it. We move on beyond this, and this is for a very short amount of time. We'll get into longer periods, durations in a little bit here, but we start to see at 4G, look at the big difference. This was 3G and this is 4G, and see how much puke we're starting to generate here. At this point, that isn't bad at all. We only have a total rating of 1.25. That's very, very low in the grand scheme of things, but we're starting to see that fear isn't actually being generated in the corner itself where you're experiencing the horizontal Gs. It's being generated because nausea is happening. See, that's that connection right there. So 6.42 is starting to creep in there, starting to get fear because you're starting to generate nausea. All right, we move on here. Now we're up to 5G. We're about as close as I can get to 5G. And look at this. Now we're really starting to get people, queasy at this point, I would say at least. And fear is a direct result. Again, we're seeing that connection. Now we're getting very, very close to the limit. Very, very close. At this point, it's Puke City, You better have an umbrella. Your person that cleans up all the puke, he's going to quit his job because he works underneath this roller coaster. It's going to be terrible. You're getting over 8. At this point, you're pushing your luck. And the fear, as a result, is going to be much higher. But what we can see here is we've reached that point where our excitement rating isn't really going up that much as compared to our fear. And we found this out in my last tutorial, not the one that is make huge airtime, is trying to find the perfect loop size. And we reach a point where, you're increasing your speed to get a little bit more excitement, but your consequence to that is your fear and nausea are going up in spades. So you kind of reach that critical moment where suddenly things are no longer worth investing into. You're not getting anything for your 0.1 excitement. You get a full point of fear at that point. But at some point you go over the limit, and you basically make everybody on the roller coaster sick, and they won't ride your ride at all. And that limit is 6G. So if you go above 6G, either to the left or to the right, you throw away your roller coaster, it's crap. Actually, what you're going to want to do is probably either bank your turns or make your turns larger so they can get that number down. So that's what's gone on right there. So your maximum horizontal G is you want to keep it below 6. A good number if you're doing it in a short duration is going to be 4 to 5 horizontal. However, if you're doing it for a long exposure, for a long corner, which we're going to get into in just a moment here, you're going to want to focus right around more in the 3G area. So that's what this roller coaster right here, built on the limit. But as we can see, even though it's built on the limit, it's not clipping our track ratings. I mean, it's obviously going much, much higher because we can see, watch, this nausea rating is exposed for a very, very long amount of time. Therefore, it's all rounding up quite high. But it's not making people quit it because you're exposed to it longer, because you're not going too high. Does that make sense? Right? You haven't gone beyond the 6G limit, but you're at a point where it's more sickening or more terrifying to ride your roller coaster than it is exciting. So you're not in a good position. But I just wanted to show you that even that test right there was proving whether or not there's a cumulative effect of being sick while going into another corner, and that is a no. It's just that number is then exposed for a much longer period of time, and we can see that over here as well. There's not much of a difference. We're just seeing a different number in your fear and nausea ratings right here as you're exposing people. Okay, so there you have it. That is horizontal G. Now, if we take a look at this ride over here, what we can see based on horizontal G over a long period of time, if we actually take a look at this and we hit nausea, this roller coaster's result doesn't hit any more than 3.35, which is why I'm saying if you're going over a very large turn, like that's a lot of numbers to start rounding up and really hurting your excitement rating because your fear and nausea are going so high, you kind of want to keep that number low. Even though it is well below the 6G limit, that 3G guideline is kind of what you want to keep to. Again, if you start seeing 8s here, then you're probably going up too high. If you're talking about, nausea or fear in general. Fear is okay, but nausea, you don't want to see that high. Okay, so that is horizontal G taken care of. Now I did also test vertical G, and that's done in a more ridiculous way over here with these two launch coasters, the best way I know to test it. Now, right off the bat, I will let you know that you can absolutely crush the people on your roller coaster, and they will still ride it. So this roller coaster right here experiences a ridiculous 27.31 G. So I mean that do you in, but you can still get people to ride it right there. But there is a moment where your excitement rating is going to be below your fear rating and nausea. It's a loss, a critical loss, but maybe not like doomsday where you're going to have 1 in 10-10. Like you're not at that point. And that point happens, the best of my testing I've seen thus far, at 8G. So you can go up to 8G, but really your best practice is to keep it right around 7 if you can. So this other roller coaster here, this one experiences a 6.85G. Now if I were to expose this to a 7G result or a test, we'd actually see those numbers go down in proportion to each other. So let me just go ahead and do this. I'm going to speed it up to a little bit faster. There we go. That's probably a little bit more than what I wanted. There we go. Let's make this happen. So there we go. The roller coaster goes off, comes back, and parks or whatever. And we're going to get our result right there. So this is 8G. And see, that's exactly what I was talking about right there. We went over 8G, and now look, our excitement is lower than our fear. So at this point, you've reached that moment of critical loss. So 8G is what you don't want to go over. You can go up to 8G, but you don't want to go over that. Your best practice is to pretty much focus on 7G. If you really want for an extreme ride, focus on 7G. You can kind of round it up or round it down from around there. Okay. Now, the last thing on our list is acceleration and deceleration. I did test both of these. The only thing that is going to ever hurt you here is if you're coming into the station too fast. You can hit your brakes, like I did it right over here, at 20 meters per second, or you can accelerate at 20 meters per second, and it doesn't really hurt you at all. If anything, it's very exciting for the people that are riding the roller coaster. But what you don't want to do is come into the station super hot and accelerate your roller coaster from like 50 miles an hour to 0 in 1 second, because that will cause your excitement rating to be absolutely nothing and fear and to just go through the roof. So that's what you want to avoid right there. Besides that, just use your brakes, and use your brakes aggressively, because people seem to find that somewhat entertaining. So there you have it, guys. Those are the best G-forces you can apply to your roller coaster to get the most excitement out of it. Just for a bit of a review, when we're talking about vertical, so we're going down or we're going up, you can get a maximum vertical G of 8, but your best practice is right around 7. And again, you could probably do about the same thing if you want to go negative G, so you're actually being pushed up out of the seat. You could probably go up to 8. I didn't necessarily test that high, because your best number that you should be focusing on is -1. That is perfect airtime. As mentioned in my last tutorial, make huge airtime. Focus, your best practice is -1. So best practice vertical is +7 or -1 right there. Horizontal, you're going to want to, if you have a short corner, you can expose them between 4 to 5 horizontal G. If you go above 6G, you're going to blow up your people and they won't like you at all, because your nausea rating is going to go through the roof. However, if you're going through a very long corner, you don't really want to go too much past 3G. That's probably your best practice for horizontal, as we can test right there. As far as acceleration and deceleration, if you're using power launches or brakes, it doesn't really matter. You can crank them up to the max and you should be just fine. It doesn't really hurt you at all. The only thing you're going to have problems with on that is if you're coming into the station too hot and you rapidly decelerate and break everybody's necks. So there you have it. That's the maximum G, guys. Hopefully you guys have found this video somewhat informative or helpful. If you did, maybe leave that like on the way out. And if I've earned your subscription, then thank you so much for that. If you guys got a couple of recommendations you want me to try or some other things to look into, there's a lot of stuff yet to discover in this game. I'm working through the rest of these loops already. And not to mention the thing that Comrade is already mentioning right there. A lot of good tutorials yet to come. I'll see you guys next time. Stay awesome. Have a great day. Peace. Brothgar out. Okay, here we go. Come on! Yeah! Woo! Woo! I totally got him! That was building a roller coaster on a floating island right there. Pretty cool idea. Fun stuff. I enjoyed it. 1 million. There we go. Now we're talking. That's the sound of money if I ever heard it. Woo! It's kind of got a weird ring to it. I'm liking it so far. Bye-bye!